तामर प्रणत मौलिमणि प्रभाणा.
If you can keep in mind, I'm here to give. Whatever happens to me is a result of my past karmas. What I do will come back to me. If you're clear about that, you're sorted. You don't have to read lots of scriptures. But internalizing the practice, the whole idea is not just knowing the thing. You got to live it.
I was told a very interesting story by my great-grandmother. And this is the first time I heard the story about Vardhman. I must have been 3 or 4 years old. And she told me that about 2.5 millennia back, there was this young boy called Vardhman. He was a prince and he had every form of comfort you can think of. Comfort, leisure, but he kept feeling there was something missing. He would look around him and see suffering, and he didn't understand that. And he didn't understand the meaning of life. He didn't understand what happens after death. And he didn't quite find peace within him. So when he was about 30, he decided to give up this whole princely life that he had, and he became a seeker. So he wandered around the country, seeking, looking for meaning, and he would spend hours in deep meditation. And then finally one day something quite miraculous happened. He received what was called Keval Jnana.
Correct.
Which was the ultimate illumination and awareness. And that is when we would say he became enlightened.
Yes.
And he overcame at that point this whole bondage of karma and life and death. And his teachings, which were oral at that point, later became scriptures called the Agamas. This was Mahavir, the 24th Tirthankara of Jainism. His main teachings were about non-violence, truth, and self-discipline. And we are going to explore the Agamas today and the relevance of the Agamas in our modern life today and how they have been preserved over many, many years. For that, we have someone very special. We have Manish Modi here with us today. He is the great-grandson of Pandit Nathuram Premji, who was a pioneer in the publishing world of Jainism, and he was a social reformer. And Manish runs the prestigious Hindi Granth Ratnakar Karyalay,
Yes.
which started in 1912. He's very passionate about promoting Jainism through translation, through publishing, through lectures. Thank you, Manish, for taking the time to be with us here today.
Jai Jinendra. Thank you so much for inviting me here.
Thank you. Now, Manish, I want you to start by telling me, what are the Agamas and how are they relevant today?
So the Agams are the teachings of the Tirthankars. Now when the Tirthankars taught, there was no writing. This is prehistoric era. So people heard them, but they had the Gandharas who were such elite intellectuals that they would retain everything. So this was the oral process, and for this process went on for generations. Bhagwan Mahavir attained Nirvana in 527 BCE. That's before Common Era, before Christ. And for about 500-600 years, the oral tradition continued. And his disciples remembered every bit of the teaching. With time, the teachings, the memory was diminishing. So the teachings were going away. So at that point, they started and decided to sit down and start recording what was left. You had Acharya Bhadrabahu, who was the last Shuddha Kevali. Now, Kevali is an omniscient being. So, Bhagwan Mahavir was a Kevali. There were 3 other Keval Gyanis after him. The last one was Jambu Swami. Now, after that, there were no more omniscients left. But there were people called the Shuddha Kevalis. They remembered, they had the memory of an omniscient, but they did not have the experience of that knowledge. Now, with Jainism or any kind
Explain that to me.
Yeah. With Jainism or any kind of tradition, it's not just the verbal knowledge, not just the scriptural knowledge, but the experience of that knowledge.
Right.
When you experience it, when you imbibe it, and when it becomes one with you, that is when you become omniscient. where it becomes part of who you are. After Jambu Swami, there were no more people who had that realization of that knowledge. They had the information but not the realization of that.
So you're saying that they learnt the knowledge, it wasn't downloaded to them.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
The spiritual download hadn't taken place, but at least they carried the hard data with them.
Right.
So that hard data continued till about 100 years before Christ or around the time of Christ. At that point, they realized that even the hard data was going to get lost. So that's when they decided to start writing it down. It's
Okay.
called recension.
Right.
So they began writing it down. So a lot of the original Agam was lost. But parts of it significant parts were retained. Now we have two traditions in Jainism, the Digambars and the Shvetambars. The Digambars believe that there were the 12 Angas, there were the 12 limbs of the Agama. So Shvetambars believe that the first 11 Angas were retained, the 12th one was lost. The Digambars believe that the first 11 were lost and the 12th was retained. However you see it, the Shvetambars have retained the first 11, the Digambars have retained the 12th one. You combine that and you still have an Agama. See, there will always be didactical people who will say that let's have this quarrel, but Jainism is about self-realization. It's not about quarreling. And ultimately, it's about the inner experience.
Absolutely.
All of the external
Absolutely,
knowledge
yeah.
is merely a takeoff point for the internal wisdom. Once you have the internal wisdom, then that's where
Then it doesn't matter
doesn't
what
really matter.
anyone says to you outside.
Exactly.
Yes,
So that's
yes.
why anyone who's learned Jainism properly or believes in the spiritual world will not get into these arguments about Digambar and Shwetambar or Hindu or Jain. It's or Islam or Christianity.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all about the internal
Inner
purity,
experience.
inner
Absolutely.
experience.
Absolutely. Yes.
So these are external labels. Like you take off point, one person's take off point may be an airport, another person's take off point may be say a railway train. A third person will be say a car or a bike.
But the destination is the same.
Exactly.
Yes.
So all the Agamas give you that inner picture. With the Digambars, the story is very interesting. There were two gurus, Acharya Dharsen and Acharya Gundhar. Each of them knew part of the scripture. So then they had these very learned monks who went to them, Pushpadant and Bhutabali, and these gurus tested them to see if they were capable of carrying this information. So the guru deliberately gives them a wrong sutra, a wrong shloka. So they memorize it. So then they end up with weird hair and weird teeth. So then he says, look, if you memorize it correctly, all this disappears. So then they memorize it correctly. It's done flawlessly. So after testing them, testing their memory, then he starts giving these very deep, very detailed descriptions of karma and how karmas bind to the soul. Now this is directly the knowledge of Bhagwan Mahavir, who's an omniscient. So this is sacred knowledge. It's also very, very important knowledge. Now, unlike other systems, Jainism has always believed that knowledge must be disseminated with everyone. It's meant for everyone.
Right.
So all the laws of Jainism are basically universal laws, meant for the well-being of all human beings, all living beings, not just human beings. There's no caste system or no gender. Or
No
anything.
differentiation.
It's all people have souls, right? Everyone who has a soul wants happiness.
What I find amazing about Jainism is that it's not just for the benefit of all human beings. It's for the benefit of everyone.
Exactly.
Not just all beings, but all objects. It's for the benefit of everyone and
Yes.
everything.
Yes.
That is what is so powerful about Jainism.
Because the omniscient saw that everyone is in pain, everyone wants happiness. So give them the path of happiness. If I were to put it in two sentences, it is know yourself and be yourself. That's the path. Very simple.
Everyone is energy. We're energy. The objects are energy. The animals are energy. We're all energy. So it's coming back in a way to what Jainism taught
Exactly.
centuries ago.
Yeah. So basically thing is we have the energy, we have to purify the energy. How do you do that? You look at what are the driving forces that sort of scar your energy. The driving forces are Ahar Sangya, Maithun Sangya, Bhay Sangya and Parigrah Sangya. The desire for food, desire for sex, desire for collecting external material objects and fear.
And fear, bhay sangya.
Yeah, Bhay Sangya. So these are the four driving forces that impel you into sansar, into transmigration. So what Mahavir is saying is work on these. So Mahavir does not say you starve. Eat, don't be attached to it. Drink, don't be attached to it. And find a way of living which doesn't harm others. I have a guru, Jayesh Bhai Sheth. He came up with this beautiful thing called the universal laws. And these are basically the teachings of Bhagwan Mahavir in the simplest form. And the first universal law is, I am here to give.
Lovely. Lovely.
It's just the idea that if I'm here to give, then there's no problem. I am here to give, and whatever happens to me is a consequence of my own actions. It's very simple. If you have money in your bank account, then withdraw it, right? If you don't have money, you cannot withdraw it. So if you have given in the past, you will get now. If you haven't given in the past, how will you get it now?
So Manish, then I have a question for you. There's a lot that's said when you studying about the Agams or about Jainism, that the scholars worked very hard and the monks to
Yes.
preserve the Agam.
Yes, of course.
Why? Why did they need to firstly preserve it? Why was it different from, the other scriptures? Why did it need to be preserved? And secondly, give us some examples of what was done.
Sure. So what happened is, as I said, the scriptures were being lost because of the diminishing memory.
Right.
So they had to work hard to restore that. And once they did that, it was written down in the Brahmi font, which is the earlier font.
Right.
And with time, those scrolls started getting damaged.
Right.
So every 200-300 years, there would be some kind of renaissance. And people say, okay, let's rewrite these scriptures. So then they would write it on another set of palm leaf scrolls, another set of palm leaf scrolls, till about the 14th, 15th century Common Era, where 10th century Common Era, when we had paper coming into India, thanks to China. So then they started writing them. By then, languages had evolved from Prakrit to Sanskrit, and on the other side, from Prakrit to Apabhransh, from Apabhransh to Hindi, Marathi, Punjabi, Haryanvi. All of these languages had begun evolving. In the south, the Dakhini languages, you had Tamil first, of course. Tamil is earlier than modern Sanskrit, Sangam Tamil.
Okay.
So you had Tamil, then you had Malayalam coming in, Telugu, Kannada, then Marathi comes from Kannada and Maharashtri Prakrit. With time, these scriptures written in Prakrit were noted in the Kannada script.
Okay.
So language is Prakrit, but script is Kannada.
Right.
So the dichotomy is that you have scholars of Prakrit in northern India, they don't know Kannada. And scholars of Kannada in southern India, but they don't know Prakrit. Typically in India, we turn conservative. Very often the people put in charge of taking care of the scriptures or temples are the most conservative people.
Right.
They may be decent people. I'm not questioning their motivation, but they turn conservative. Their fear is, what if someone touches these? They will become less sacred.
Right.
All that kind of thing, which is very illogical to begin with, but that's how it is.
Right.
So these are people, well-meaning people, who stop scholars from referring to these things.
Right.
So the first challenge was to get these guys to give up the scriptures. Hey, look, we're not taking them, we're not stealing them. We are Jains, we need to study these scriptures because they've been lost for so many years.
Right.
So, and we have recordings where after the, say, 10th century Common Era, these scriptures are not found anywhere in northern India. No one knows where they are. In the 20th century, with better communication, they find out that these scriptures were lying in Karnataka, relatively well preserved,
Right.
in Mudabidri and Shravanabedagod. So you have these scholars like my great-grandfather Pandit Nathuram Premji and his scholar friend Dr. Hiralal Jain. There was this sub-judge, Jamna Prasad, sub-judge. Back then even a judge was strong, but even a sub-judge was a very important person in the community.
Right.
So they get hold of other rich people. Says, okay, please, we need to get these things done. We need to get these scriptures translated into Hindi. Because we've been lost without them for 800 or 1000 years. So initially you had the Seth Hirachand, Seth Manikchand from Bombay. He paid someone to clandestinely record these scriptures because the people in charge of them were very conservative.
Right.
And they felt that if you touch them, they'll become less holy.
Right.
Which is crazy, but that's how it was. So it took them decades to convince those guys that, hey, look, we are well-meaning people and we just want to transcribe these scriptures from Kannada script to Devanagari script, and we need to understand and analyze and translate them into Hindi for the well-being of the common man. for everyone, for scholars, for everyone, because we've lost them. We are Jains, we claim to have these scriptures, and they've been lost. So it took 20, 30 years to convince the people.
Right.
To allow them to transcribe them. So you had scholars who would transcribe them from ancient Hale Kannada to modern Kannada script. Now the guy who was doing the transcribing was not a scholar. So the problem with Indian manuscripts is there are no full stops and commas. You have to understand the subject matter to understand where the full stop is appearing and where next sentence
No,
starts.
there might not be full stops, but there's enough. I don't know, there's those lines,
No,
there's
those
the double
lines come
lines.
not everywhere.
Okay.
And if it's shlokas, the lines are there.
Yeah.
When it's prose, there are no lines.
Okay, that's interesting.
So there was a gentleman who started doing the transcribing, and he brought it to North India. I said, okay, I wrote this down. I said, dude, where are the full stops? So he randomly puts Raat ko baith ke, puts the full stops anywhere he thinks is appropriate. The sentence doesn't make sense.
So you're saying it was very difficult to get
Yes.
them transcribed back to the
Devanagari.
northern languages,
Yes,
to
not just the
Devanagari.
language, just the script.
And to the script. Oh, I see.
Now we're not even reached the language part yet.
Right.
We're still stuck with script. And then these pandits, what they would do is they would do one edition for the Sethi and then one secret edition to be sold off later.
Oh, I
So
see.
all of these were full of mistakes. At some point they said we need to have Kannada scholars as well. Otherwise we will never be able to interpret these properly. So then there's a team of 2 editors, Dr. Hiralal Jain and Dr. A.N. Upadhyay. Dr. Hiralal Jain is from Bundelkhand, so his mother tongue is Hindi, Bundelkhandi. He's a scholar of Sanskrit. And of course he knows Prakrit. And Dr. A.N. Upadhyay is a Kannadiga. He knows Prakrit and Sanskrit and English. And he knows Hindi also. So these guys are the 2 editors.
Right.
And on the other hand, you get actual translators who will do the work. You have Pandit Phulchand Shastri, giant scholar. He translates about 7,000 or 8,000 pages like that, charging 1 rupee per page, one large page. Imagine that ancient language from Prakrit into Hindi, from Sanskrit into Hindi, and all of that proofreading. Understanding is such a technical subject. Over 7,000 pages were done. It took a period of 20, 30, 40 years. But once it was done, there was no money to print it. People are not interested. People want ornate rituals because that's fun. No one was interested in scriptures. So then these guys, Pandit Nathuram Premji, Dr. Hiralal Jain, Jamna Prasad Subjudge, they catch hold of this very rich man in Vidisha called Seth Sitab Rai Gulab Rai. And he wanted to spend 30,000 rupees to build yet another temple. And they said, we have enough temples. Now the thing in Bundelkhand is we have this system. These titles, Seth, Shrimant Seth, how do you get a title? When you build one temple, you're called a Singhai. You build 2 temples, you're called a
They give you a title.
Savai
so yeah,
Singhai.
yeah.
When you build 3 temples, you're called a Seth. You build 4 temples, you're called a Shrimant Seth. Shrimant Seth is the ultimate acme. It's like the Rolls Royce.
Oh, so that's why he wanted to build more and more temples. Yeah.
So they said, we'll give you the title of Shrimant Seth, don't worry. You give us this money, we'll publish this book. So he gives the 30,000 rupees to these guys. They get these scholars working and they give the title Dan Veer, Shrimant Seth, Sitab Rai, Gulab Rai, Lakshmi Chand Jain of Vidisha.
Right.
That's how they got the money.
That's how they got the money and got it done. And talk to me, Manish, about the themes and talk to me about the structure of the Agams and any key themes that you want to mention.
Okay, the Agams, they work on various topics. And they are divided into 4 Aniyogas. The Prathamaniyog, Charananiyog, Karnaniyog and Dravyaniyog. The Prathamaniyog is dharmic stories, inspirational stories, which is the most popular. You have the Charananiyog, which give rules of conduct, of proper, appropriate conduct. Then you have the Karnaniyog, which gives you details about the universe, how it works, how karmic bondage works, how many heavens there are. There are 16 heavens. There are 7 kinds of hell. What you do, what gets you there. And then you have the Dravyaniyog, which talks about the soul, bondage, and how to get rid of the bondage.
Okay,
So as Jains, we are taught that you read all 4 Aniyogas. If you just read one Aniyog, you have partial knowledge. You should read all 4 to get a proper nuanced understanding.
And what is being done in terms of the young kids? Is there a school that they go to learn it? Is it up to the parents to teach them? How is a young child made to read it?
Okay, the beauty with all Indian religious systems, especially India, is that we are very free. There's no Pope authority, which
Yes,
says you've got to do
yes,
this.
yes.
So all parents are free. So most of the times, largely till 30, 40 years ago, Indian families had 3 generations. It was a grandparent's duty
Yes,
to give
yes,
religion to
yes,
their children.
yes.
Okay, that's how it worked beautifully. Over the years, with more influx into cities, more of this, only 2 generations living under one roof, now the need was felt to impart religious instruction. So initially, say 100, 200 years ago, you had very few pathshalas where children were taught. But now the system 20, 30 years ago was revived very strongly, especially in larger cities like Bombay, where we have a large population of Jains. But even otherwise, Jain monks, wherever they go, they're more particular about reviving the system of pathshalas. So children have the opportunity to go there and study. But again, it's optional. Not every child goes, not every parent wants to send his child there. But the system is there if you're interested. In my case, we didn't have pathshalas back when I was growing up.
Right.
So then I started studying at the age of 20. I mean, I'm a Jain by birth and by practice. We were vegetarians and all of that thing. And I used to listen to lectures occasionally, but it never sparked an interest. At the age of 20, there's this very beautiful poem in Jainism called the Bhaktamar Stotra. So Bhaktamar Stotra, I started learning it. Now this talks about miracles where this sadhu, Acharya Mantung, is put under 48 chains. And each
Wow.
shloka he recites opens one chain. I'm like, this is not Jainism, boss. We don't believe in miracles. We don't believe in chamatkar. So then I started asking people, look, I'm happy to... Now my Nanaji was very keen on Bhaktamar Stotra. He said he had 8 grandchildren. My mother has 2 sisters. Between the 3 girls, they had 8 children. So all of my first cousins and I, we were all taught the Bhaktamar Stotra. Now when I was taught at the age of 20, it's a beautiful shloka in Sanskrit, 48 shlokas. Now when I was taught, I started questioning, कि boss, I don't believe कि ताला टूट गया. ये तो miracle, चमत्कार हो गया. So then I started asking people what this is about. I learned about the Sanskrit system of poetics where they say you have 3 types of statements: Abhidha, Lakshana and Vyanjana. Abhidha is a literal statement. Lakshana is the symbolic understanding. Vyanjana is when you allude to a person. I'll explain this with an example. Take the name Aparna. It's a very common name, right? Aparna. Now, Aparna, literally in Abhidha, what does it mean? Aparna, non-leaf.
Okay.
So, why would you name your daughter non-leaf? Doesn't make sense. Lakshana, what does it mean? Now, leaf in Indian literature means Parnakuti is where a sadhu lives, in poverty, in simplicity. So when I name my daughter Aparna, it means I want her to live not in simplicity but in luxury.
Right.
Aparna.
Right.
Parnakuti is simplicity, na?
Right.
To live in luxury. Aparna.
Right.
Now, Vyanjana. So their goddess Parvati is called Aparna. So that's why I name her Aparna, not because of non-leaf.
Ah, interesting. Very
So
interesting.
when you understand the Abhidha, Lakshana, Vyanjana system, then you understand the Bhaktamar Stotra. He's talking symbolically.
And also, Jainism has this rich tradition of interpretation
Yes.
and commentary.
Yes.
So, talk to me about some of the commentaries which you like and something that's particularly relevant today.
Okay, so we have this very detailed system. We have the Churni, we have the Bhashya, we have the Tika, we have the Avachurni, we have the Tabba.
Okay.
There are 7 of them. Okay, all 7 explain the text in a different manner. All of this is hermeneutics. My son is studying this now. He is doing his PhD in religious studies at University of California, Riverside.
Wow.
So he's studying hermeneutics right now.
Okay.
He just wrote a paper on the Shatkhandagam and its evolution. So hermeneutics, why? Because just words will not convey the sense. For instance, you and I, we've seen Sachin Tendulkar bat, right? So when we say he is a Sachin Tendulkar in his field, we mean he's an excellent proponent of his field, right? Now, if someone were born in the year 2020, he may not know Sachin retired in 2012. He may not know of Sachin Tendulkar. And for instance, now, you have this system called deliberately archaizing a text, where you're saying that this was much older than it actually was. This has been done. It's being done in India.
Right.
So then you catch them out in this manner. Like he says, this was written in the 1970s, but he refers to Sachin Tendulkar.
Right.
There was no Sachin Tendulkar in the 1970s.
Right.
So that's how every commentary will help you situate the text in its logical context.
Okay.
Without
Yeah.
that, it's impossible to understand anything. There's this beautiful text called Tatwart Sutra written in the 1st or 2nd century Common Era by Acharya Umaswamy, which is commonly accepted by both Digambars and Shwetambars as
Okay.
being the most important text of Jain doctrine.
Right.
So this text, there's a modern commentary done by Dr. Duli Chandra Jain of New York. And he says it in a very, very scientific manner, explains everything. See, this is one way of explaining religion, which is like, it's all sacred, we can't analyze. It's beyond us, we cannot understand. The other way is a more logical way where we says, we'll understand everything. So Jainism has room for both. We have the Agya Pradhani and the Pariksha Pradhani. The Agya Pradhani person will say, okay, God said it, I believe it. Khalas.
Yeah.
That's
Agya,
it.
huh?
Agya Pradhani. I will accept it, which is fine. The other guy is the Pariksha Pradhani, people like
Pariksha,
us.
yeah,
Where we will examine it.
Yeah.
And we will only accept it if we are convinced.
Right.
So, Tatwat Sutra, so Bhaktama Stotra is for Agya Pradhani.
Okay.
Tatwat Sutra is for the Pariksha Pradhani, where I want to analyze, understand, and I will only accept it once I'm convinced.
Wonderful.
So, Dr. Duli Chandra Jain's commentary is beautiful. It explains things in the
Lovely.
simplest manner.
And tell me, in terms of the practices of Jainism, I mean, something that people talk a lot about is the mindfulness and the ethics.
Yes.
So give me some examples again that could be relevant today of the mindfulness and ethics practices.
Yes. So here we are taught in Jainism that you see things from 4 perspectives. For the rest of the world, for yourself you have the Bara Bhavana. For the others you have the Char Bhavana. What are they? Maitri Bhavana, Pramod Bhavana,
Friend.
Karuna Bhavana, and Madhyastha Bhavana. So Maitri is universal friendship with all living beings, no matter what. He is a human being, he is a creature, he's an ant, caterpillar, crocodile. It's a being.
It's a being.
It has a life
Yes,
form.
Yes.
It could one day attain moksha.
Yes.
Therefore, Maitri with all living beings.
Right.
Maitri with all creatures.
Right.
Also Maitri with this table, with this stand, with this cup.
Yes.
Because if I have hatred, it's holding me back.
Yes.
So Maitri with all thoughts, all ideas, all people, all objects. Universal Maitri. Maitri Bhav. Second is Pramod Bhav. Pramod Bhav is where you genuinely appreciate someone's good qualities. Every bad person will have some quality. Every good person will have bad qualities. You look at the good, ignore the bad.
Right.
So Satveshu Maitri, Gunishu Pramodam, Krishteshu Jiveshu Kripa Paratvam, Madhyastha Bhavam Viprita Vrittau, Sada Mamatma Vidadhatu Deva. First thing is Maitri. Second is Pramod. When you genuinely appreciate someone's good quality, you start imbibing it. You prepare yourself spiritually to accept those good qualities inside you. And when you start criticizing, you're accepting his bad qualities.
Yes.
If you don't want to do that, do the Pramod Bhav.
So focus on the positives.
Always. Third is the Madhyastha Bhav. Madhyastha Bhav is equanimity. No matter what happens.
Madhyam.
हाँ मध्य में रहिए. मध्यमार्ग.
Equanimity.
Equanimity में रहिए.
Yeah.
जो हो रहा होगा.
हाँ.
मेरे कर्म के अनुसार हो रहा है. There's nothing that will happen that was not part of my karmic, what I have earned. The fourth is Karuna Bhav. Karuna is
Kindness.
compassion for those who are less fortunate. Another thing we have to do is be gentle with others, firm with yourself.
So you said Maitri Bhav, Pramod Bhav, Madhyastha Bhav, and Karuna Bhav.
Yes.
Beautiful. That was beautiful. That was amazing. Now also tell me, with the digital revolution now, I mean, I know that in the past there's been all these issues in translation, and I'm sure there were bits that got lost or got misplaced in the process. But how have things changed now? Is it easier to dispel knowledge? How has it affected Jainism in particular?
See, I remember when I was living in Dubai, this is 94 to 99, and there's a gentleman called Vinod Daryapurkar. His daughter Shivali was, I think, 10 or 11 years of age. Says, look, he was an IT professional. Says, look, the digital world is here. There was an English translation. Beta, start typing it. We didn't have a lot of sources. We didn't know a lot of things. The girl starts typing the entire text, English translation, and we upload it on jainworld.com.
Right.
Over the years, past 25 years, 30 years, there's been so much of technology. So a lot of Jain texts are available on AI, A lot of text we are working on OCR, optical character recognition, we're working on that. And a lot of websites are there. Wikipedia is usually very reliable. There's a jainpedia.org. There's lots of websites which give you very good information on Jainism. Lots and lots of books being printed. A large chunk of Jain texts have been translated reliably into English. I've done about 70 text translations myself.
Wow.
And there are lots of people who are doing this kind of work because people realize that ultimately 1960s onwards, India thinks, writes and speaks in English. So if you don't have it in English, you're lost.
So, Manish, you're such a wealth of information, in terms of Jain knowledge. It's amazing. Tell me, like you were telling us that when you were 20 and you heard that story about the chains,
Yes.
and, the miracle, that's when, that excited you into going further.
Jain
Tell me
studies.
your favorite anecdote or your favorite story about Jainism from your life of learning.
Okay, there was one was this turning point, this Bhaktama Stotra. The other turning point in my life was I used to work for Bulgari in Dubai.
Okay.
Beautiful jewelry,
Right.
amazing jewelry and watches.
Right.
So I was the inventory in charge. I would keep the keys to 12 million dirhams worth of jewelry and watches. So there was this beautiful watch. It cost 385,000 dirhams. So more dirhams than there are days in a year.
Right.
Okay. And I was inventory in charge. Gorgeous Bulgari watch, very elegant and diamonds and stuff. And I used to think, hey, this watch is the key of happiness. Anyone who owns this watch is happy for the rest of his life.
Right.
And sure enough, one day some wealthy sheikh from some minor province, not Dubai and Abu Dhabi, a tiny province, some sheikh came and bought the watch. Lovely. And I thought this guy's the luckiest man in the world. And 6 months later, he comes back. The watch is battered, full of scratches. Like, what the hell happened? It kind of shattered my illusion that this is not happiness. Because this watch is looking horrible. I wouldn't wear it today. If this was my idea of happiness, then it doesn't work. I start thinking to myself that having more is not a sign of happiness. It's not the object that gives happiness.
Absolutely.
It's your concept of happiness.
Yeah.
So you work on that concept and you're assured of happiness. Happiness andar se aa rahi na, usse to nahi aa rahi.
Bahar se nahi.
So then you work on the inside.
Absolutely. It's all internal.
It's all internal.
Yeah. Everything is internal.
So when you realize these 4 bhavnas, Maitri, Pramod, Karna, Madhyas, you start internalizing things. There's another magic formula. It's called the sorry, never again, thank you. So how does it work? Now, there are many times when people have offended you, hurt you, or said or did something that you didn't want them to do. What do you do? आप अपने अंदर sorry कर लो. कि यार, I must have done this. Had I not done it, I would not have witnessed it in front of me. You see someone beating someone up. There's something happening which is bad. Apna sorry kar lo ke I must have done it in the past. That's why I saw it. Either I did it myself or I asked someone to do it. Krit karyat anumodana. I did it myself. Karyat I asked someone to do it. Or I aided and abetted someone in doing it. Or I said, well done. Arey, usko mara, bahut acha kiya. When you do these things, you're binding karmas. So when you stop doing that, aap sorry kar lo. Aapka ho gaya, michha mudhu karam. The next thing you do is never again. Never again is, we say, you make a resolve, I must have done something bad in my past. I will never ever do it again. Now you've stopped yourself. Past ka aapne clean kar diya, aage ka rok liya, aage main nahi karunga. Third is thank you, welcome. You said thank you. When someone does something bad for you, he's cleaning your bad karma. What are you going to say? Thank you.
Thank you. What a great way of looking at things. Now tell me, you've given us some really great
I'm glad.
things to go back with, like this sorry,
Never
thank
again,
you, never
thank you.
again, thank you.
Yes.
That's amazing. That actually reminds me of this Hawaiian Ho'oponopono saying almost.
Yeah.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
very similar. And also the 4 bhavnas. If there's one message at the end that you want people all over the world to listen to, what would that be about Jainism and the Agams?
If you can keep in mind, I'm here to give. Whatever happens to me is a result of my past karmas. What I do will come back to me. If you're clear about that, you're sorted. You don't have to read lots of scriptures. But internalization is practice. The whole idea is not just knowing the thing. You got to live it. And live it with this understanding of sorry, never again, thank you, welcome. See, the one thing that all of us do realize, say you travel from London to this place, you took a plane, right? Now you're not attached to the plane, right? Plane hai to theek hai, aap baithe comfortably, now you're here. I took a cab and I came here, now the cab is gone, it's fine. Similarly, this body is a role that I'm playing. I'm not really Manish Modi. This is a role that I'm playing.
This is just a body that
Yes. So this role I play to the best of my ability. It's like Amitabh Bachchan in Sholay. He did not hate Amjad Khan. He was playing that role.
Lovely. Thank you, Manish. That was such a wealth of knowledge. Thank you for coming here and talking to our listeners today. And to the listeners, I hope you'll take away some of these pearls of wisdom that we've learned about Jainism and the Agams from Manish. The one that I'm going back is the 4 bhavnas, which I just, and also what you said about the sorry, never again, thank you. That was also
sense.
Amazing. All that is very powerful, and I'd like to end with a little bit of something that Mahavir had said, one of his teaching, which says, one who neglects or disregards the existence of earth, air, fire, water, and vegetation, disregards his own existence, which is entwined with them. Thank you for being here. I hope you go back and you're helped with a little bit of this amazing, precious knowledge that has been passed down to us. This is Anshu Bahanda. Thank you for tuning in to Ancient Wisdom for Modern Living, Sacred Texts, Timeless Wisdom. Until next time.